Hey everyone, Mike here from MLive&apos, joined by Justin Rogers. It's Friday. We had a bye week last week, so we've had basically 2 weeks of stories with little happening. I think the well's running a little dry, but something we had tossed back and forth a little bit is just what players have improved over the course of the season. Not over last year, but just since the start of training camp in July to this point. Who's the guy you've seen improve the most? Justin, who's the guy you've seen?
I've got to go with cornerback Darius Slay. I was looking at some deep stats the other day, and one's called burn rates, basically how often a cornerback gives up a reception versus how often he's targeted. Slay was at 50%, and that's really good. And to explain how good it is, Richard Sherman's at 47%. And Richard Sherman's often held up as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, shut down man corner, and Slay is hanging right with him. Slay is being targeted a lot more, tested a lot more. Teams are still, not sure if he's for real, but each game he's held up. He's given up very few big plays, and really solidified what was viewed as a weakness coming into this season.
What specifically about his game have you seen him improve from that that first week of training camp to now?
One, he's not as handsy. He's not picking up the penalties. He's not, and two, he's when he's getting his hands on balls, he's knocking them away. He's got something like 8 or 10 breakups. Got his first interception. So he's cleaned up his technique to the point where he can rely on his speed, rely on his footwork, and make plays on the ball as opposed to, making plays on the man.
I've seen him make a lot of improvements with reading the keys of the receiver, and that's something he struggled with when he first came in. I mean, he was an offensive player growing up, switched to cornerback in college, and didn't really receive a ton of coaching at Mississippi State, at least not NFL level coaching. Right. So when he came in, he was kind of raw with the mental aspects of the game. And one part of that, and it's a key part to being a quality NFL cornerback against all these great receivers and physical specimens, is just being able to anticipate what's going to happen. And that's something I've seen him improve with quite a bit. I know he worked really hard at that in the offseason as well. And he just seems to be anticipating plays and routes a lot better than what he was last year, and jumping passes and that kind of thing.
I hope he got Rasheem Mathis, a gift basket for his effort and his teaching.
Yeah, but Rod Woodson too.
Rod Woodson's
I think that helped a lot.
He's taken on some great mentorship for sure. Yeah. How about for you? Who's the most improved guy you've seen start of camp to now?
Well, I think Corey Fuller. And Slay's really good, but maybe I just watched him closer or something, but for me, it might not even be close. And we've seen some huge surprises. George Johnson's a guy that we talked about and stuff, as guys we just didn't see happening this year. But I look at what I saw from him the first week of training camp and to now, and he just looks like a different receiver. He's fluid. He looks comfortable. I can't say that he looked comfortable early in training camp, and even talking to him in the locker room, he just sounds like a guy. But before, his voice would quiver a little bit. Like when you talk to him, you could tell he was just a shy guy, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a check mark against a guy or something. But he does look comfortable. He's commanding. He talked to a scrum today about his development and being mentored by Kelvin Johnson, and he just he talked a lot about following Kelvin around the building, knowing when he gets his massages and what he does before a game or what he does after a practice, and just life as an NFL receiver. And that's, I think, helped him quite a bit just settle into this role, because remember, he played receiver only 1 year in college. I mean, he was a track guy and he was a quarterback on the football field, and then he transferred from Kansas to Virginia Tech, played 1 year, and this guy was extremely raw. And he says now, like looking back on when he first came in, he didn't know anything.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to that rookie season, and he looked lost out there. He was terrible with his get-off. His technique was awful. Yeah. And that's going back 2 years, and you've seen this steady arc of improvement. Even OTAs this year. I remember the first couple days of OTAs, he was putting a lot of passes on the ground. His hands were unsure. You could tell physically he had matured. His body's transformed. I think he's actually lighter somehow than last year, but he's just got a much better definition to his body composition. But the mental strides that you talked about are just, they're very noticeable, especially since Calvin's been out and he's been forced in that bigger role.
I know that in week 1 against the Giants, a lot of people were questioning the move of keeping Corey Fuller active over Ryan Broyles, because Broyles was so productive in the preseason and so forth. I think we're now starting to see what this coaching staff sees in the potential of Corey Fuller, that this guy is a guy who is fast enough to take the top off of defense, and once he starts putting all this stuff together, he can be a force in the game plan. And I'm not sure, Ryan Broyles can do some things as a possession guy or whatever, but I think the top end potential with Corey Fuller is it's significant, and we're starting to see that.
I don't think anybody's questioning the decision to keep him over Chris Durham.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we got. Two guys we've seen improve quite a bit over the season. Helps explain some of the growths we've seen from this team heading into this week's game against the Dolphins. For Justin Rogers, I'm Kyle Meinke. We are MLive. Keep it right here.